Okay, hello YouTube community, and yeah, it has taken rather a lot longer for me to record this bit of the test because, well, life really. Tons going on, big changes in our little business that we're trying to put in place, and on top of that, I'm alone because my wife and cameraman and editor Jax is back in South Africa for some family stuff. Well, I say I'm alone, but I have little Leia and Big Obi, our pair of schnauzers, keeping me company, and I have the beautiful Auvergne countryside on my doorstep, so plenty of hiking with the big lad and indulging my passion for photography, all while we've had temperatures in the mid-20s, which is absolutely ridiculous for mid-October. It has been perfect biking weather. You'll have seen how lovely and sunny it was in early October when I had the Evo. Well, it's been even better than that recently, but I haven't dared ride my MT-09 because most of the fuel stations around here haven't had any petrol. In fact, we have 5 petrol stations in the town, and for a couple of days last week there was no fuel in any of them. Some got delivered and that has all gone again. So yeah, I'd love to be out there on the bike, but fuel stations are relatively rare once you head off into them there hills. And the MT-09 has only got quite a small tank, so I don't fancy wasting most of my riding time checking every petrol station and topping up with a litre or two, just in case the next fuel stations I come across don't have any. The reason for this state of affairs is some striking action going on in the fuel refineries and storage and distribution depots, I think it is. I'm not going to moan, much as I like to, but I support the idea of workers' right to strike, so I can't really believe in the power of a united workforce and then whinge when it affects me personally, can I? So, grin and bear it and hope it gets sorted soon, although it's been a couple of weeks so far. Anyway, enough of the, social chit-chat. I'm sure you'd rather know a few of the extra details about the Evo, all of which I've obviously forgotten now because that was a week or more ago. I will just add that the ride back to Lyon I had to return the bike along those 220 kilometres or so of mountain roads was very different because the weather closed in for that trip. I was in cloud most of the time, so temperatures were hovering around the 5-degree mark. Damp, drizzly, moisture most of the way. You know what it's like, wiping your visor, cracking it open just a little bit to stop all the misting up. It was quite horrible. I had full Alpine Stars Dry Star kit on though, so I stayed completely dry, along with my wonderful new V Quattro boots that I was wearing when I filmed the test. Warm and completely waterproof thanks to the Gore-Tex construction. Love them to bits, and I bought those, by the way. They're not sponsored at all. Tangent alert again, damn. I'm trying to get to the fact that despite the horrible conditions, it would have been a perfectly enjoyable ride had it not been for the absence of heated grips on the Evo. I've come across this quite frequently on KTM demo bikes that are obviously loaded with all the other performance enhancing electronics but missing the warm grips. Whomever makes that decision regarding the press fleet needs to be ripped away from his warm desk in Mattighoven, taken round the back of the building, and if not shot, then at least forced to spend the rest of the day with his hands in a bucket of ice-cold water. I've never met him or her, but if I ever do, I shall be sure to introduce myself with the aid of a Glaswegian kiss. Apart from that egregious omission, the Evo was actually hugely reassuring and easy to ride in what were challenging riding conditions. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that the bike was so sure-footed that I actually enjoyed the ride. Being able to soften everything off at the touch of a couple of buttons, and I mean everything from throttle response to the suspension itself, and even change the bike's attitude from high at the back to low and more stable. just brilliant. It may be the beast, but it has manners befitting royalty and makes for such a faithful, predictable, trustworthy riding partner that rather than put me off the bike and biking in general, the foul weather and horrendous riding conditions actually made me even more of a gibbering fan of the Evo. Back to some specifics of the technology, there's an anti-dive feature that you can activate, again, electronically, and it makes sense, it really does. Stops the bike pitching forwards quite so severely under braking, moderating the weight transfer, and it feels okay, and I'm sure you'd get used to it and possibly even prefer it eventually, but I'll have to be honest and say that after a quick tryout, I didn't spend any more time with it. As a rule, we just don't get bikes quite long enough to spend enough time with features like this, and I was on some serious roads, seriously enjoying myself with some serious consequences if I got things wrong, and I have to come clean and say that it was just easier for me to go with what I know, and that's the traditional diving front end. A feeling that sort of subconsciously lets me understand what's going on, because that's how bikes have been working for me for the past 30 odd years, and because of that connection, because of that familiarity, I don't have to waste any of my limited brain power to deal with something that is essentially going to get in between me and my usual understanding of a bike's behaviour. The next time I come across a system, I'll make it a priority to try and spend some more time with it. I mentioned the auto preload adjustment, I think, and that was in the test, and that was supremely useful, as it turns out, with my wife getting on and off at different spots to do some filming. Obviously, that's not exactly something that most riders will ever need, an ability to deal with a passenger that's there one moment and not the next. But it does just reinforce how it simplifies the business of sorting your suspension for differing loads, whether that be luggage or passenger or combinations of both. I will just add, and I'm sure I don't really need to, that this is a bike best enjoyed alone. Once you really get into your riding, you'll be using plenty of really positive braking and acceleration and lean angle, and again, plenty of combinations of all those elements. And for a pillion, a tall pillion in my case, that little seat that Jax says is angled slightly too far forwards, with no grab handles, a long reach to support herself against the tank, it's not a nice place to be. Unless, of course, your partner is about 3 foot tall and weighs 30 kilos, then I'm sure it's fine. What else? Bridgestone's S22s on this bike. I have complained a little bit about these tyres before, the rear one in particular on my MT09, although in that long-term report I did say that I should probably hold off on a definitive verdict about the tyres because I was suspicious about how crap the rear shock was on the, or is, on the standard MT09. Turns out the shock really is quite dire, and the tyres are in fact excellent. Loads of grip and feedback from the front, even more from the rear. You can feel and understand the info that's coming back at you. Again, a testament to the excellence of this Evo's suspension. Yeah, no doubt about it, I've changed my mind about the S22 rubber. It's excellent, a great road sport tyre, no doubt. Yeah, I'd just like to add actually that when I got back to my MT09, I realised that yes, the rear shock that I've dialed in to be as good as it possibly can be is it's a turd of a thing. I'm going to have to find another one. The Evo is more than twice as expensive as my lovely Yamaha, but you know what? It's way more than twice the bike, so fair dues. But as an interesting aside, after a week with that beastly engine, I expected to be so underwhelmed by my MT09 that I would be forced to sell it and move on after riding that incredible V-twin. But you know what? It only took me a couple of kilometres to realise it's actually not far off being a triple cylinder legend itself. A fantastic, playful, more than powerful enough engine with a great two-way quickshifter on a smooth gearbox. Thank goodness for that, because I can't afford anything else at the moment. Moving on though, this is not meant to be an MT-09 review. I'll cover more of this stuff in my next long-term report on the Yamaha. Let's take a deeper dive into KTM's recent announcement of its new optional extras, what should we call it, selling strategy. Okay, so up until now, KTM relied on annoying its customers and certain journalists who might also be potential customers, like myself. Someone who was in the market for an 890 Duke until he realised that KTM's pricing strategy meant that its quoted base price was in fact pointless bollocks, because it didn't include stuff that any self-respecting sport rider would assume was already included in the price. I'm talking about the two-way quickshifter, for instance. Of course, on a bike like the Evo that will set you back in the region of, what was it, 22,000 euros, that is surely baked into the price. I hate to bring up my MT-09 again, the cheap option in the middleweight sport naked class, but at 9,500 euros it came with the two-way quickshifter as standard. No extra money required. On the Super Duke Evo, a model on which you have already decided to fork out extra for the fancy suspension, they will ask you for more money if you would like your quickshifter to go down as well as up. Like you're the sort of person who enjoys lifts that go up your office building but not down. This sucks a lot. It has always sucked. The same goes for some of the other options like engine braking and traction control that you can adjust on the fly if you pay more. It's shitty, excuse my language, but for the more niche elements like launch control, for instance, I can just about accept it without actually having a full-blown heart attack. However, what does give me heart palpitations, and so I'll have to be careful now about how I talk about this, what really annoys me is being forced to pay extra for the bike's electronic anti-wheelie to be able to be turned off. They electronically prevent you from enjoying what this horsepower-laden machine will happily, insistently do all day long, and that's thanks to its mechanical ingredients, and obviously I'm talking about wheeling here. They want to charge you for the pleasure of releasing what is already there. They can claim whatever safety nanny loyally cobblers they want, but the fact is that this ready-to-race company that trades on its out there, living life on the edge, performance is everything kind of attitude is actually cheapening the entire purchasing relationship with a pricing structure that alienates its customers rather than engages with them. I love and respect KTM's products. I hate the way they sell them. I've rambled on about this for years, but now they've shifted the game on a bit, or a lot actually. And to be honest, I think it's too late now to start shouting the odds, because what little I know of it means that I think it sort of genuinely makes sense on the back of the rather obnoxious stance that they've already taken. I'm talking about something called demo mode. It gives you, for the first 1,500 kilometers, the full range of electronic options. Everything. For 1,500 kilometers, you can experience the absolute full range of options. Then after that time is up, all those options will disappear from your bike, and you can then pay to reawaken whatever you found valuable to your own riding use case scenario. On the back of what they're already doing, this is an undoubted improvement for the customer, perhaps even for the manufacturer if they entice a buyer to part with money for a feature he might never previously have entertained the idea of unlocking. For the customer, the advantages are obvious. Instead of looking at an options list and not knowing or understanding how various electronic riding aids might feel or affect or enhance even your riding, and consequently not wanting to spend the money on an unknown quantity or quality, you may now gain the knowledge required to make an informed decision during those first 1,500 kilometers of the demo mode. Many people across the media, YouTube, social media influencing world are losing their minds about this development, but like I say, they're, I think, way too late. The time to be annoyed was years ago, when this gouging of customers for the technology to get 100% of a new model rather than 80% of it. You should have done that in the beginning when this kind of options gouging first appeared. So personally, given the path that KTM has already chosen, I think that this is a fantastic, welcome development that makes the decision to purchase these options much more fair and informed for the average rider who has probably never experienced any of these acronyms in action before. So really, well done KTM, but also not well done before that, if you know what I mean. Either way, great bikes, like the Beer Stella Artois, reassuringly expensive. I've always thought that they should have been more upfront about their pricing, and in a strange way, I think that this demo mode goes some way to rectifying what is an already slightly distasteful situation. Okay, if you made it this far into the report, thank you. You're probably a regular, a subscriber, and if you're not, then please consider subscribing for more honest, moaning biking journalism, and please give the video a thumbs up to help with YouTube's dark and mysterious and very possibly malevolent algorithm. We hope you stay tuned over the next couple of months, because you're going to see some big changes for this channel. A lot more travel content and a new separate South African bike show channel as Don takes over more of that part of the business, since I don't find myself back there in South Africa that often these days. In this hemisphere, up north, we'll be searching for and riding more new bikes and speaking to more biking people and visiting, hopefully, more great biking roads and venues than ever before. So please stick with us. We're intending for our new way of doing things to be in play before the end of November. It'll perhaps be a bit more rough and ready, but hopefully more timeous, more real, more informative and more entertaining. Those are the plans, but me and plans don't always work out. However, stuff of some description will definitely be happening. Hopefully you'll check back in with us occasionally to see what exactly it is that's going on. Oh, yeah, and before I forget, someone did ask me if I could choose any of the Super Nakeds, which it would be. Well, Ducati's Street Fighter V4 is undoubtedly epic, and I haven't ridden the Tuono V4 for 2 years now, I think it is, though for the previous decade it was always my favourite given its chassis sophistication, despite my natural bias towards the delights of a V-twin. But I abandoned that love in favour of the Super Duke R in 2020 after the Gen 3 update, and with some Evo-ness on top of that, I'm more sure now than ever, at least for the road, which is where I think these bikes ultimately should be judged. It's KTM's ultimate naked bike that rules the super naked category for me.